Welcome, friends, to our 12th session of Unveiling the Beloved. I am always delighted and honored to be with our friend Khabir in Germany. I'm in Colorado, and what a blessing to be able to collaborate and co-create and weave these sessions together. Today is Good Friday. I don't know who came up with the name Good Friday. I don't think Jesus would approve, but that's what we call it. So here we are on Good Friday. And we'll be working with themes of dedicated service and sacrifice and love and fulfilling our purpose and listening to the instructions from the deeper wisdom than our own little selves and things like that. So welcome, and we're going to begin with the invocation, and we will start with the English invocation, and then we'll ask Khabir to share the invocation in German. And if you are more comfortable with a different language than English or German, I invite you to speak it in whatever language makes your own heart happy while we do these ones, but we're only going to share these two in a noisy, unmuted way. Okay, here we go. Towards the one, the perfection of love, harmony and beauty, the only being, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the Spirit of guidance.
Dem einen entgegen, der Vollkommenheit der Liebe, der Harmonie und der Schönheit, dem einzig Seienden, vereint mit all den erleuchteten Seelen, die den Meister, den Geist der Führung verkörpern. Amen.
Thank you, friends. So we're going to start with a song today, and this is one of Murshid Sam's melodies that attunes to not necessarily the living human being of the Prophet Muhammad, but the embodiment of each and every one of us that are doing our best to fulfill our purpose in life. And it is said that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said 3 times, I am the servant of God. I am the servant of God. I am the servant of God. And after 3 repetitions of reiterating and emphasizing this quality of service is then, Ya Muhammad Rasulullah. That is, I am the messenger of God, which actually Muhammad didn't say, but others did. So for every indication of being the prophet and having an important position, it is more important to notice the 3 repetitions of being in service, of paying attention to our instructions and fulfilling that. Is everyone else hearing me okay? Okay. So, Baraka, I see your message, but I think it is your volume or your setting on your computer. Okay. So, we'll sing twice through Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, and then one time Muhammada Rasulullah, and then coming back to the most important phrase, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. The words are in the chat window for you. So if we were up and boogieing around doing the dance as Murshid Sam gave the instructions, we would be walking with a sense of purpose and direction forward and back for Ya Muhammad Abdullah that is just 1 foot in front of the other, continuing on doing our work with dedicated service, and then doing a complete turn for Muhammada Rasulullah with arms straight overhead, so we're really receiving our instructions, because the role of the prophet is not one of self-importance, but one of receiving the message of God and conveying it in its purity to humanity. Okay. Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah, Muhammad Rasulullah, Ya Muhammad Abdullah. Sorry about that. It's like the pleasant chime that it's time to do something else, except not so pleasant of a chime. Sorry about that. Okay, friends, so I have, of course, a couple readings from Pir O Murshid Hazrat Inayat Khan for you, because he helps keep us on track and give us instructions and encouragements and blessings and guidance for how to fulfill our purpose even when it's really hard. This is not one of the readings, but I'll just tell you that there are three different aspects of a path that Murshid describes, and one of them is the path of the master, which is the one about being in control of oneself and being in service to the world, but in a very dedicated, empowered way. The second is the path of the saint, which is the path of renunciation, the path of surrender, the path of gentleness, responsiveness, that is very humble and quiet. Not necessarily outwardly quiet, but energetically quiet. And then the third one is what he describes as the hardest one, which is the path of the prophet, which is in balance with the paths of the master and the saint. So it is in dedicated, relevant, obvious, apparent service while being receptive, responsive, gentle, and harmonious with one's environment, and that finding the balance between those two is the most tremendously difficult path. And so, as we're attuning to the essence, the life, the death, the work, the relevance of the Master, the Saint, the Prophet, Jesus, Isa, Rasulullah, and in this last song, Muhammad, Rasulullah, it's nice to keep those things in mind and to attune to the struggles of these great beings. That if they struggled, how could we expect not to struggle? Yeah. Okay, so from the surahs in the Gayan, here is one brief statement from Murshid. Blessed are they who patiently strive in the cause of truth and do not weary. Here it is one more time. Blessed are they who patiently strive in the cause of truth and do not weary. And then here's a passage from volume 8 on the art of being. Wholeness, W-H-O-L, meaning completeness, wholeness is also holiness. Wholeness is also holiness. Nothing short of this should content us. If, as Sufis, we are endeavoring to tread the path which leads to the culmination of love, harmony, and beauty, that perfect trinity which is the goal of all life. It is not the solid wood that makes the flute, it is the empty reed. The worker is only the instrument which God is using, and insofar as one can put aside one's own lower personality and dedicate and consecrate one's life to the great service, will one be successful in the work one has undertaken. Would you like to hear that whole thing again? I know it's so much in there. We could just dwell on one sentence at a time, but we're not going to. Wholeness is also holiness. Nothing short of this should content us. If, as Sufis, we are endeavoring to tread the path which leads to the culmination of love, harmony, and beauty, that perfect trinity which is the goal of all life. It is not the solid wood that makes the flute. It is the empty reed. The worker is only the instrument which God is using, and insofar as one can put aside one's own lower personality and dedicate and consecrate one's life to the great service, will one be successful in the work one has undertaken. So we have just a few more minutes before I pass this to Khabir, and I'd like to guide us in a bowing practice, but we're going to do it in a simplified way just while we're seated. That is, but this is originally like on the ground, kneeling and bowing, forehead to the earth, forehead, which is putting the mind, putting our own important intelligence below the heart, the loving, devoted, dedicated, selfless heart. So the words for this practice are in the chat window for you. This is a practice that Murshid Sam gave. We're all about Murshid Sam this morning. We won't keep with Murshid Sam all morning, all evening, but for right now we are. So the first part is upright and saying, Ya Allah, that is invoking the divine presence. In love, reverence, and humility. And during this part, we're going to just lean forward and at least feel an indication and intention about putting your mind below your heart while we do this next part. In love, reverence, and humility. I surrender to thee and to thee alone, and pause at the depth of the bow. And then the next phrase we say while we're coming to sitting upright again. And thou dost raise me spiritually. Ya Allah. In love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. Coming up. And thou dost raise me spiritually. Ya Allah. In love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. And thou dost raise me spiritually. Ya Allah. In love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. And thou dost raise me spiritually. Ya Allah. In love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. And thou dost raise me spiritually. One more time. Ya Allah. In love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. And thou dost raise me spiritually. This can also be done as a breathing practice that doesn't need to be spoken aloud, where you begin with a full inhalation, Ya Allah, and then breathing out in love, reverence, and humility, I surrender to thee and to thee alone. And then breathing in as you come back up again, and thou dost raise me spiritually. Khabir.
Welcome, Captain. I guess it's Captain. Welcome, you all. Welcome to those who popped in a little later to this Good Friday Unveiling the Beloved. I just asked Mushit Google what the German word Karfreitag actually comes from, which is K-A-R, Karfreitag. And there's an old German word that says Kara, and this word means grieving, weeping, sorrow. So that maybe makes a little bit more sense than Good Friday. So welcome. Let's dive into some words to connect ourselves to the creating force of that universe, Abba, and our willingness, if we are willing to serve this creating force, Abada, Chaimenuta, Allah, Chaimenuta, the trust that we can have in that creating force, Abada. And what came to my mind about the Da was if somebody would ask me, are you willing to serve this creating power? I would go, duh. So maybe this is the Abada. I have no idea. Abba, Abada, Chaimenuta, Allah. Abba, Abada, Chaimenuta, Allah. Abba, Abada, Haymanuta Allah Haba Habada 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 Haymanuta Allah. All these words, melodies, mantras, practices, chants, readings are a way to connect us, to reconnect us to that creating force, to that creating power, that divine force that is surrounding us and is there always around us and within us. And a story which I'm not sure of if I told you the story already, but I don't think so. Well, anyway, like a good story, you can hear always twice or three times or whatever. So it's a story of a nature spirit, and we call them wood women. And they are, how can I describe a wood woman? She's not that tall, usually, looking a little bit like an elderly lady, having like a tiny little nose, bushy eyebrows, very funny looking eyes. And they usually live in trees. So this wood woman that I'm telling this story about, she found a beautiful tree to live in, and she moved in as soon as the tree was tall enough so she could live in it. So usually nature spirits are very social, like having friends around them and relatives and everything. But this special wood woman, she had no husband, no kids, but she had her tree and her art. And her art was that she could make wood sing and sound. So she was walking around the forest, and when she found like a branch or a piece of wood or bark, she just knocked on it with her fingers. And then she listened to the sound of the wood. And sometimes it was like a tuck tuck, sometimes it was a talk talk. And then it was like more echoey or, like very. So she was walking around the wood, the forest, and knocking on trees. And she really perfected, do you say perfected her art? And she could make like a, a tree sing a whole melody with just knocking on different points on the tree. The tree was singing a melody. And sometimes when she was walking through the forest and she had like a very good day, which I mean, every day was a good day for this woman. She was walking through the forest and she was playing symphonies with the trees. It was just like a train following her. She was going and knocking the trees. And sometimes people walking by on the edge of the forest, they were like, huh, do you hear the wind whistling in the leaves of the trees? Is that an animal that I never heard of and never saw? What is that sound about? And nobody ever saw this wood woman. Sometimes, so this wood woman, she sneaked into the gardens of the human beings, and she made like a plum tree sing or an apple tree. And usually nobody recognized the singing or the sound of the trees. Now, one day she was in a garden full of apple trees, making the apple trees like sing. A little boy ran into that garden and stood there, totally marveled, looking at these apple trees, going like, "Oh, the trees are singing. Can't anybody hear the trees are singing?" And then he sat next to one of the apple trees and he was just staring into the trees, listening to the melody that the wood woman made. And the wood woman, she recognized that he could hear the melody of the trees. Now, this boy, he returned to that garden each and every day just to hear the trees sing. Well, the wood woman had business to do, so she couldn't be there every day, but now and then she made it, and then this boy was the happiest boy on the planet, sitting there smiling, listening to the song of the apple trees. Now, his mom, she was not happy about that. I mean, he was not doing what he ought to do, like cleaning the yard, collecting the potatoes, killing a chicken, milking the cows, all that stuff that a boy on such a farm usually should, had to do. He had no time. Now, his mom, she called him to do the things that he had to do, and he did them, and kind of, because he had to do them, and he hurried up so he could be as fast as possible back in the garden to hear the apple trees. Now, through the time, it kind of, they found their way. The woodwoman and the boy who grew into a young lad, still sitting in that garden, listening to the trees. And she coming now and then, making the trees sing. And the mother of that young lad, she was sitting in the kitchen and she was not happy because she realized that her son would never become a farmer. So, what should happen with the farm? Well, the young lad, no, he didn't become a farmer. He he really wanted to find a way to make wood sing. Because, I mean, if the apple trees can sing, then wood must be able to sing. So one day he left the farm because he had heard of people who could make wood sing, people who built instruments. So he found a master, and he learned how to build organs, guitars, flutes, violins, but nothing that he built sounded like the apple trees in his garden back home. Well, after his education as an instrument builder, he went back home. His mom had died, and he took over the farm somehow, and he was an instrument builder. So people came to have him build instruments for them. And now and then he sat in the garden and listened to the apple trees. And the wood woman, she was thinking, maybe I should give him a present. So one day, when he was walking around the forest looking for wood to build instruments, she and her friends, they guided him to a special tree. Well, he didn't know that he was guided, but he was guided to that very special tree that wood woman was looking for. And then when he stood in front of the tree, he was knocking on the wood, and he was like bowing some branches, and then he thought, that could be good wood. And the wood woman was thinking, could be good wood? Wait till you hear it. Now, with the next new moon, that young lad, he went into the forest and he cut that tree, and he stored it at home, and he went to that trunk every day and knocked on it. And then one day he thought, now you sound like the forest that once surrounded you. Will you sound like the forest when I made an instrument out of you? And then he built a violin with that special wood. And when he played it, it sounded like the forest. It sounded like all the trees that surrounded him. It sounded like the trees in the apple garden, as we would call it. So he sat there underneath the apple trees and played the violin together with the apple trees. And the animals came out of the forest looking. The wind stood still for a moment, not to disturb that sound of that violin. People came and were listening to him and that sound. And next to him stood the wood woman. Nobody knew she was there. Even that young lad did not know that she was there. And still, he knew that when he went into this forest, that he was guided to find the right wood to build his instruments with. So there was a team of a wood woman and this young lad. And the wood woman, she didn't mind that nobody knew that she guided him. She was just happy that one human being heard the tree sing, recognized it, honored it, and loved it, and followed the sound of nature. Haba, habada, haimanuta, Allah. Haba, habada, haimanuta, Allah. Haba, habada, haimanuta. Haymanuta Allah Haba Habada 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 Haymanuta Allah Sára.
Thank you, Khabir. I'm getting messages in the chat window, Khabir, about how much people adore you. Just so you know. Oh, there goes the captain. He knows I'm about to pick up a guitar. Okay, so we're gonna do a little more Jesus attunement for the next ditty. This is it is one of the melodies that is expressing the essence of the first line of the Lord's Prayer in Aramaic, the prayer of Jesus, where we'll sing Abun Devashmaya, Abun Devashmaya. And this particular melody was composed in New York at Ground Zero. And so there's a very deliberate intention about it in tending to the space that is emptied, that is after things have fallen and died and completed their service, their usefulness, and tending actively to the emptiness by infusing it with blessings, which is precisely what an instrument maker does in taking a felled tree or the materials that are no longer serving their previous purpose and infusing them with the potential for music, for beauty, for inspiration. So in this this particular composition, it's called Abun to the Four Directions, that starts out with being in the emptiness, in recognizing the vast spaciousness, and then to each of the four directions from your own orientation, offering a blessing for the space to be filled with the shimmering light of divine presence as a sanctification. I'm trying to decide what my vocal cords want to do this morning. I think we'll go a little lower than usual. Let me put the words in here for you. Say Avun, Avun Devashmaya. This is the line of the Lord's Prayer that is most commonly translated as Our Father who art in heaven, which, if that works for you, that's lovely. And if it doesn't work for you, here are some possible perspectives on that. The first is the Abun, that is the Our Father interpretation. But in the Aramaic, there is no gender specification. There is a sense of beginningness that everything rays forth from, that everything shines out from, that is the ultimate source of all beings, all things, of each moment of existence unfolding, Avun. So you can feel into that vast spaciousness in the and then you can feel a beginning point where everything has a moment of being closed so that it can open forward and outward in its true expression through the voo. So, and then Devash Shemaya is in heaven or of heaven, and I think that that can work very nicely. But in the center of it is the Shem, that is the shimmering, vibrating, humming, living quality of the atmosphere itself. And so that living, vibrating quality pervades everything that ever was, is, or will be. There is no time stamp on it of beginningness or endingness. So this process of blessing and intention that can be infused into the void is all pervading and constant. So we're tuning into that. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 shemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Abun, abun, de bashemaya. Shemaya, 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 Shemaya. Murshid said, this is from the Religious Gothikas, number 26. You don't need to know that, but some of you I know are such Sufi nerds that you want to know where you can find these things. I'm also happy to send them to you if you'll have to ask me for them, but I'm happy to send them. Religious Gothikas, number 26. When we think deeply on the problem of life, there is no path in the world, whether spiritual or material, which we can tread successfully without a sacrifice. Sometimes the sacrifice is great and sometimes small. Sometimes the sacrifice is made first before achieving the success, and sometimes afterwards. As sacrifice is necessary in life, it is made by everyone in some form or the other. But when it is made willingly, it turns into a virtue. The greater the ideal, the greater the sacrifice it demands. And if one saw wisely the process of advancement through life in any direction of life, it is nothing but a continual sacrifice. And happiness comes from the understanding of this nature of life and not being hurt or troubled by it, but by knowing that it is by sacrifice made to the end that man attains to the desired goal. There's a train or a river sound, huh? That's fun. It's probably my furnace, but if it sounds like a train or a river, that's way better than sounding like a furnace. Okay. You okay with that? Sacrifice. Always required. Sometimes great, sometimes small, sometimes beforehand, sometimes after. Life is a continual sacrifice. And, most importantly in here, the sacrifice that is made willingly turns into a virtue. The sacrifice that is made unwillingly is not a virtue. That's just a struggle. That's just a battle. That's just a resentment and a suffering. It's the sacrifice that's made willingly that becomes a virtue. Another short passage from Murshid, because you haven't had enough Murshid yet, have you? It was taught to say, when sacrificing, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallahu, which Murshid translated as, God is great, none exists but God. It was taught to say, when sacrificing, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallahu. 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 ilaha illa Allahu. Allahu Akbar, la 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 ilaha illa Allahu. Two more times. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illa Allahu. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illa Allahu. Ideally, when using that phrase, those phrases, that statement, we are not clinging to our ego structures and our self-cherishing. We are putting our attention, our acknowledgement, our respect, and our dedicated, willing service in the hands of God. We're acknowledging that all power, all capacity, everything that could ever happen throughout all of existence happens through the will, the desire, and the power of God. We can cooperate and participate in that with love, trust, faith, dedication, generosity, confidence, consistency, with full heart. But it's because we're acknowledging with the wholeness of our beings that power presence of God, attuned to that. Ooh. Ooh. I think we have 4 minutes. Do we do a breath or a song? A song, of course. I don't know why I even had to say that. Okay. So, part of this willingness is letting go, being purified, washed, swimming, and being held by God. Subhanallah is glory to God, but it's also a purification. La ilaha illallah. There is nothing except the one. And then this is a translation into English of a couple lines of a Rumi poem. Be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Be melting snow, be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Be melting snow, be melting snow. Wash yourself Wash yourself of yourself. Be melting snow. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Be melting snow. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself. Khabir.
Let's just sit a little moment in silence, being the melting snow, washing ourselves from ourselves. The next story, with the next story, we travel to Africa. It's a story from Africa, and it's a good example for me for trust, beauty, faith, letting go, surrendering, hope, dreams. And yeah, and it starts with the words that many stories start with. Once upon a time, there lived a king who had a beautiful daughter named Aditola. When the girl was 16 years old, the king sent for her and said, Aditola, my dear child, you are now at the age when a girl should marry. I am therefore determined to find you a husband among the many young men of our people. I would like to marry, father, replied the princess, smiling, but only on one condition. I want to be sure that my future husband really loves me. No one can look into the heart of another, Aditola, but rest assured, my child, trust only in your old father. He will find you a husband who will marry you not only for your beauty and wealth, but because he loves you dearly. This very day I will make it known in my kingdom that I intend to marry of my daughter. The news of the impending marriage, the king's daughter, spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom. Early next morning, the first men appeared at the gates of the royal palace seeking admittance. Around noon, the large courtyard resembled an army camp. So many young men had rushed here from near and far. The richest of them had appeared with servants and slaves and had brought precious gifts with which they wanted to court the favor of the beautiful king's daughter. But Adetola had made them wait a long time before she appeared. Only when the sun was preparing to disappear on the western horizon, she appeared at the hand of her proud father in splendid decorated courtyard, in the center of which two throne chairs had been set up, on which the king and the princess sat down. At their side sat the throne council. To the cheers of the young men, the king now announced that he was willing to marry his daughter to the noblest young man in the land. When the cheers had died down a little, the first man appeared before the king. He was a young man in a gold-covered agbada, which is the name of the traditional gown. With a deep bow, he presented the princess with precious gifts, which Adetola happily accepted with a smile. When he had handed over the last gift, he again made a deep bow and said, "All this was given to you by Bola, who is called the richest young man in the land and who loves you dearly." Adetola thanked the young man for the many beautiful things and turned to the next, who also presented her with many precious things. It was not long before the most splendid robes, precious jewels of gold and precious stones, and many an ornament were piled up beside the throne of the beautiful king's daughter. Adetola gazed with childlike joy at the mountain of gifts, over which she was so happy that she soon completely forgot why all these young men were there and stood in front of her. She woke up from her dreamlike rapture only when, around midnight, the last young man stood before her. This young man was called Ope and came from a remote village out in the countryside. By chance, he had been in the capital on that day of the announcement of the royal message, and because everyone had praised the beauty of the king's daughter to him, he had bought a white agbada from his last savings and had hurried to the royal palace. As a gift, he carried 3 golden arm rings, which his mother had given him on her deathbed many years ago. At the sight of the pretty Adetola, he got into such a confusion that the arm rings slipped out of his fingers and fell at the feet of the king's daughter. Startled by his clumsiness, he quickly bent down and picked up the glittering rings. With trembling hands, he handed them to the smiling princess and said, "Take this humble gift from a man who is one of the poorest of your subjects and who is already happy to see you face to face. The 3 rings mean love, joy, and life. The king's daughter rejoiced over the humble poor youth man and thanked him with affectionate words for his gifts, while the last, which he was, withdrew into the crowd. The king rose from his throne and said to the eagerly waiting young men, I thank you, my dear sons, for rushing from far and near to do honor to my daughter. You can see for yourselves how happy she is about the wave of love that has hit her today. But it is already deep night, and you all know that your king does not make decisions at night. I will announce my decision to you tomorrow in the light of the shining sun. For Adetola shall not be a queen of darkness, she shall be a queen of light, warmth, and goodness. When the king had finished, the young man paid homage to the princess with the cry, Long live Adetola, our queen of the sun. When the father was finally alone with his daughter, he asked her, Well, my child, which man did you like best? Ah, sighed Adetola, my senses are completely confused. How am I to know which of the many really loves me? Be without worry, my child, your father will take the hard decision from you. Before tomorrow's day is over, I will marry you to a man whom I am convinced will not marry you merely for your wealth. And at these words, the king thought, My daughter shall marry Bola, the richest young man in the country. Adetola, however, immediately sank into a deep sleep after this long day. While the last fires were going out in the courtyards and the young men were going to rest, Adetola had a strange dream. Her mother, who had died many years ago, appeared to her and said, I will give you some good advice, my child. Tell your father to announce that you died during the night. By the behavior of the young man, he will know which one really loves you. When Adetola awoke in the morning, she remembered the dream. She dressed quickly and hurried to her father, to whom she told about her dream, and the king became very thoughtful and finally said, We must not let this hint from the other world go unheard. We should therefore follow the advice of your late mother. And so it happened. While Adetola returned to her bedchamber, the king put on mourning clothes and went to the large courtyard, where the men had already gathered. At the sight of the king, their merry laughter died away, for everyone could read from the king's sad eyes that something terrible must have happened. But no one dared to ask the king about the reason for his grief. And everyone was frightened when the king shouted to the man filled with evil forebodings, Adetola is dead. She died tonight. At these words, an incredulous rumor went through the crowd. Adetola dead? Before the young man had quite grasped the meaning of these words, the king cried out once more in a voice filled with pain. Adetola is dead. Understand it? She's dead. Only now did the young men become aware of the incomprehensible, and they thought, no more wedding feast, no more dream of becoming a king. When the initial horror of this news subsided a little, the young men lined up in the same order in which they had courted the day before the princess. Bola, the richest young man in the country, was the first to offer his hand to the grieving father. It is inconceivable that Adetola, whom we all loved, is no longer alive. Only yesterday we offered our bridal gifts, and today she is in the realm of the dead. But life goes on. Therefore, allow me only this humble request. Now that Adetola is dead, and I can no longer marry her, I would be grateful if I could get back my precious bridal gifts. They cost my father a fortune, and you will certainly not be able to use these things. Now the king realized the true character of that man whom he had chosen to be his daughter's husband. Well, that he thought in disgust while he ordered his servants to immediately bring all the bridal gifts of the princess. Your king does not want to enrich himself with the gifts that were intended for his daughter. Take back what you have given in love. No sooner had the servants brought the many gifts, the young man pounced like vultures on the mountain of gold and precious stones. And it did not last long. There some got into the hair of each other, because each feared that the other might take away his precious gift. Everyone suddenly saw the enemy in each other. Only the poor young man stood apart and did not participate in the shameless activity. The king saw it, rose from his throne, and slowly went to him. Tell me, my son, why don't you seek your gift like all the others? He asked the young man, lost in thought, who was violently frightened at these words. When he finally regained his composure, he said sadly, "Oh, how could I take back something I gave yesterday to the dearest creature that ever lived under the sun? Although I am the poorest of all who have gathered here, and my gifts means a small fortune to me, I still cannot take it back. It would be a crime against Adetola, whom I love dearly. Therefore, I have only one request. I would be happy if Adetola wore the 3 arm rings which mean love, joy, and life in the realm of the dead. She shall wear them, the 3 arm rings, my son," cried the king with joy, tearing his mourning robe apart. "Adetola shall wear your rings in life. My daughter is not dead. She lives, and you, my son, shall marry her." "Adetola lives?" whispered the poor young man. "Adetola lives? She lives? Lucky me." While the other young man thought that the king had lost his mind over the death of his daughter, the happy father gave orders to one of his servants to send for Adetola. To the amazement of all the young men, there she came, and on the hand of her father, she walked over the courtyard, and her father handed her to that poor young man. I thank you, my friends, for your heartfelt sympathy. While yesterday I was determined to marry my daughter to Bola, the richest young man in my country, I am now determined to marry her to the poorest among you. For only with him am I certain that he truly loves my daughter. At that moment, Adetola bowed to her husband, and he bowed to her. She was standing there dressed in splendid robes with pearls and precious stones. And at that sight, well, the other young men all started to cry. And she said, "I have found the man who I really love, and who loves me not only because I'm wealthy." Now the king gave that young man a new name, Alaba. He was called from that day on. And Adetola and Alaba joined hands and were happy and have found each other. The wedding was celebrated in great splendor that same day, and the drums proclaimed the news of the marriage of the beautiful king's daughter until deep into the night. When the When the feast was over, Adetola and Alaba led a life of love and happiness. The 3 arm rings that Alaba had once given her as bridal jewelry were worn by Adetola all her life. And when the old king died after many years, Alaba became the most just, wise, and kind king who ever reigned in this kingdom, and Aditola, the most beautiful, kind, and wise queen who ever lived on this earth. That's a tune just for a minute or two to that African Zulu phrase, Siyakudu Misa Nkosietu. We praise you, our Lord. And as we were talking about this morning and evening, there is so much more about this energy and this force than only the word Lord. Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Ankosietu Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Ankosietu Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Siyakudu Misa Ankosietu. Sára.
Thank you, Khabir. All right, Zoom land friends, how are you doing out there? I'm just scrolling through so I can see y'all going like. Okay. From Murshid. You ready? I think this is the last. Oh, that's not true. I have so much Murshid for you. Here's a short passage from. It's sometimes called the supplementary papers, and also sometimes called the Dutch papers, that are the same things, that are from a set of talks that Murshid gave to Murids, to his students and his initiated students. So this is from a class for Murids. Love is a conqueror, and in the end, it will conquer. It is not only the person outside that love will conquer, but it will conquer the self of the one who loves. The power of love is penetrating. Nothing can resist it in the end. And by giving kindness, we have not lost anything. But when we allow that feeling of kindness to flow, then it will develop into a continual flowing condition. And then kindness will work out its destiny without any intention on our part. Would you like to hear it again? Anjali is here and she nodded, so we're going to read it again. Love is a conqueror, and in the end, it will conquer. It is not only the person outside that love will conquer, but it will conquer the self of the one who loves. The power of love is penetrating. Nothing can resist it in the end. And by giving kindness, we have not lost anything. But when we allow that feeling of kindness to flow, then it will develop into a continual flowing condition. And then kindness will work out its destiny without any intention on our part. In my experience and understanding, the ideal of selflessness and kindness are hard to attain because we are focused on our own selves, because we feel the need to protect and guard and defend and hold tight to our sense of self. And the only thing that naturally and easily helps us to overcome that natural tendency is love. And when love is pure and complete, the self no longer exists. I'll see if I can put it in the chat window for you, Baraka. I'm also happy to email these things to you, to all y'all. It might be too long to put in the chat window, but I'll try. Ah, there you go. Okay. So we're going to do another song, and this one is because I had put a bunch of songs as possibilities, and I told them to Khabir, and he was like, ooh, that one, I love that one. So we're going to do that one that Khabir loves. This is Hawaiian, and there are 3 lines to it, but each of them repeats. So even if you're completely new to this, you can grab onto the repeat of each of the lines. And because Hawaiian is such a deep, nuanced language, any little bit of it that you can see could mean 100 different things depending on the context and the tone and all sorts of things. So we'll be saying he ke hao, ho'o ma'e ma'e, ho'o ma'e ma'e, ke aloha, ke aloha. And this is, we could interpret it as the rain or the morning dew or which morning dew is like the water that appears on the grasses and the leaves after the overnight experience of the atmosphere, that the water that just magically collects. So hekehau, so there's the natural gentle form of water. Ho'omae is washes away or erases or heals all suffering, all pain, all disharmony. It just purifies and clears it. Ke aloha, with love. Martina, I will take a copy of your email address and send you a copy of the recording when we have it. Okay, so hekehau, hekehau, ho'omae, ho'omae, ke aloha. Hekehau, hekehau, ho'omae, ho'omae, ke aloha, ke aloha, hekehau, hekehau, ho'omae, ho'omae, ke aloha, ke aloha, hekehau, hekehau, ho'omae, ho'omae, ke aloha, ke aloha, hekehau, hekehau, So I'd like to share with you now. We've done several things about clearing things out and letting things go and being empty and selfless. And then what? Then we have to fill up. And we have to fill up with the things that are supportive and revivifying, strengthening. So this is a practice that Murshid gave. Y'all aren't tired of me saying that yet, are you? Murshid said, Murshid did, Murshid instructed, Murshid told us. Like, works for me. I hope it works for you too. So this is called the zikr of the cup. And so the idea is that each of us, we could think about our whole beings as a cup that can be completely emptied of self and then filled up with what we wish. And we can also think about the heart space as a cup that we want to have overflowing with love, with life, with vitality, with strength and generosity and all of these blessings that just pour into our cups until they just flow out everywhere. So the phrasing for this will say, Allah, that is God. That is our stand-in name or word for God. La ilaha, who, that is saying there is nothing except who, that is the all-pervading presence, the atmosphere of God that is beyond name and form, but all-pervading. And then Al-Hayy, which is the life, that is one of the beautiful names of God, and it's the life in the eternal form that has no beginning and no end. It's the vast field of life potential. And then Al-Qayyum, that is the ever-living or the ever-returning, that is the constant. When everything else falls away, this is the thing that remains. Al-Qayyum. So we'll start with Allah, which is a little bit of a bow toward the left, toward your own left. We're probably mirrored for you, but to your own left. So into the heart, Allah. And then sweeping across, La ilaha, coming up straight. And then Hu comes into the solar plexus that is directly down at the base of the sternum. We're putting it right in here, Hu. La ilaha, Hu. Al-Hayy comes up to the right, and then sweeping down and up to the left, Al-Qayyum. And then dropping down for Allah. Sweeping across, La ilaha, coming down into the sternum. Hu, sweeping up to the right. Al-Hayy, sweeping up to the left. Al-Qayyum, down into the heart. Allah. Sweeping across, La ilaha, into the solar plexus. Hu, sweeping up to the right. Al-Hayy, up to the left. Al-Qayyum, down to the heart. Allah, sweeping across. La ilaha, Hu, up to the right. Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, Allah. La ilaha, Hu, 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 Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum. Two more times. Allah. La ilaha, Hu, Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum, Allah. La ilaha, Hu, Al-Hayy, Al-Qayyum. Of course, the invitation is to do the practice aloud for as many times as you're going to. Then continue the physical gesture while keeping the phrases on the breath for approximately the same number of repetitions. And then to rest in silence for twice as long as you spent doing the active practice. We're not going to do that right now because we're on a Zoom and we have important things to do, but that is the instruction if you choose to accept it. While I'm at it, here is the instruction for how to send money if you feel like doing that. I meant to do that earlier and I forgot. I'll try to do it again at the end. Okay, Khabir.
Could you talk a moment about the Al Hayy Al Qayyum for Sanya? She just put it into the chat window.
Yes, these are two of the beautiful names of God, and they are often paired together. Al Hayy, Al means the, that's the article, and then Hayy means life in the eternal, all pervading aspect of life, with no beginning and no end, the all pervading life. And then Qayyum is the ever living or the everlasting or the ever returning. That is the quality where everything else falls away, and Qayyum is what remains standing.
Thank you. So in the background, you can hear some noises of another kind of nourishment being prepared, which is dinner. So during that last minutes now, it's like I should never make plans for these last 10 minutes, Sára. It's like always running through my mind. And while we're sitting, it's a new creation going on. And this is the Abba Abada. It's like the creation is ongoing. We are created ongoingly, permanently, and we are creating ongoingly and permanently. And I just wanted to give you, Uta, a shout out and the young'uns around you. It was just blissful and joyful to see them jumping on the sofa up and down. It was just like at the beginning of this Zoom, it was like, yes, let's jump on sofas. So, so this story came up to my mind. And it's a story about creation. I mean, we started with creation, and I thought I could, should, I don't know, end with creation. And now, let's assume that the creator created the man. You know, I mean, I think he created the man and the woman and everything in between, and in this beautiful world that we're living in. So this story speaks of the moment when the creator wanted to complete his work, and he came to the creation of the woman. He had created the man, and it occurred to him that while he was creating the man, he used all the earthly material that he had. So, how should he create the woman? What should he use to create the woman? So, with great embarrassment and after a long meditation, he proceeded as follows. He took the curves of the moon. He took the trembling of the grass. He took the blooming of the flowers. He took the lightness of the leaves, the playful serenity of the sun's rays. He took the inconsistency of the winds. Then he took the vanity of the peacock, the cleverness of the snake. He took the chattiness of the magpie, the faithfulness of the wild duck. He took the stubbornness of the donkey. He took the hardness of the diamond, the cold of the snow, the tears of the clouds, the burning of the fire. And he mixed all this together and created the woman and gave it to the man. A month later, the man came back to the Creator and said, Lord, this creature you gave me is always talking. It wants to take care of me all around the clock. My life is not what it used to be. I cannot live with this creature. I have to give it back to you. And the Creator said, well, okay. And he took the woman back. After a week, the man came again to the Creator and said, Lord, this creature, my life without it is not what it used to be. I can't stop thinking about her. I miss her voice when she's talking to me. I miss how she looked at me and we danced together and we smiled at each other, and her voice. Can I have her back? And the Lord said, okay. And he handed the woman back to the man. The next day, the man came back and said, Lord, I don't know what to do. I mean, I really don't know what to do. Please take her back. And now the Lord said, okay, now what is it? And the man said, I can't live with her and I can't live without her. I don't know. Now, finally, the Lord looked at the woman and said, what is your thought about it? And she said, well, you know what? I can do both. I can live with him and I can live without him. So that's a very old story. And it's said that it is an Indian story. I'm not sure about it. Actually, in the original story, it's written that the Lord also gave the woman, what is the elephant's nose called, like?
A trunk.
Trunk. Yeah. So this is part of the original story. And I'm always thinking, okay, I can't tell this story with the trunk of the elephant. So I'm always leaving it out a little bit. So here you go. I told you about it. Now you know the origin of the story and what was an original part of the story. So here we are. Thank you so much for keeping up with me and my changing of plans. And Sára, I hand it back to you. Thank you.
Oh my God, what am I supposed to do with that, Khabir? Oh, can't live with them, can't live without them. Okay. Friends, we have just about 10 more minutes for our unveiling time, and then we're going to have another 15 minutes that is our daily prayer Zoom. So, whether you knew that or not, now you know it, and you're welcome to stay on the Zoom for an extra 15 minutes if you wish. That is, um, we do the same daily practice each day with a different song, but a couple prayers, some breath concentration, and a little bit of music. So you're welcome to join us for that. I have one more Murshid reading for you for our unveiling time, and then another song and a prayer to close up our time today. And I'll put the link for the PayPal in here once more. That is not required, but if you would like to offer your appreciations for me and Khabir and our service to you, you are welcome to, and that's an easy way to do it. So this reading is also from the supplementary papers. That is that class for Marids. It's a different set, but there are a whole lot of those. And almost all of the message volumes and the papers that we have from Murshid are transcripts that are someone was listening to him speaking extemporaneously and just jotting down every word to the extent of their abilities. And then Murshid did go through them later and edited them and helped make sure that they were clear according to his intentions. So from the supplementary papers, this is about our ongoing work, and particularly in service to the message of love, harmony, and beauty. It is something that the whole life one must learn. Keep burning the fire I have lighted. It may seem very small to you, but one tiny flame, if kept burning, can be the means of illuminating a whole city. And someday, many lamps that shall be lighted at this small fire will give light to thousands. This fire of truth is now lighted, and its light will never go out. Your work is to tend it and keep it burning. The fuel needed is your every thought, your faith, your prayers, and your sacrifices. You cannot see the result of this. Light can never be lost. I have kindled this small fire from which millions of lamps can be lit. Their number cannot be reckoned, and millions upon millions of other fires can now be lighted. While in this moment in human evolution, I personally, Sára, feel like my work in the world is so small, and Khabir's work in the world is so small, not because we're such small beings, but our scope and influence is not nearly as vast as that of Murshid, and Murshid's was not nearly as vast as that of Jesus. And still, each of us is given this unbelievable, miraculous opportunity to carry the flame, the light of compassion, of goodness, of love, of kindness, of wisdom, and to radiate that blessing and that message to humanity, even in our little tiny ways. And to know that we are each fulfilling our purpose to the best of our abilities. And it doesn't have to be a large sphere of influence. Even the tiniest little sphere of influence is precious, beautiful, and perfect. So, carrying on with that in the light of love, here is a song that is just love, love, and more love, with a melody composed by our very dear friend in Moscow, Russia, Aliela. And we'll sing Ishq Allah, Mabud Lillah. God is the love and God is the beloved. We'll sing that 3 times, and then Hu, that again is the essence of God. And then a bunch of Ya Wadud, Wadud is another of the beautiful names of God that means the infinitely, endlessly loving. It is just love upon love upon love. Was this your favorite one?
Yeah.
Wadud. This is Anjali's favorite.
Among others.
If I were to give Anjali a Sufi name that was just one of the beautiful names of God, it would probably be a Wadud. Okay, so hold on, let me put a cable on here. Ishq Allah, Mabud Allah. Ishq Allah, Mabud Lillah. I'm sorry, that's how Aliala composed it. Ishq Allah, Mabud Lillah. 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 Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya You know, all the sacrifices come down to love. Even God's, you know that phrase, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. All based on love. Here's the prayer Khatum. O thou, who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, the Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear thy voice, which constantly cometh from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. Raise us above the distinctions and differences which divide. Send us the peace of thy divine Spirit, and unite us all in thy perfect being. Amen. Thank you, Khabir, and thank you, Anjali, for being here with me in person.